This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
Oh boy. Jupe making mistakes. I love it. And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow, too.
Triple, hey, stomp the same ball. Let's go.
Stomp. There we go. So how was the flights in and out of Penn State last weekend?
Pretty good, actually. I was home by like, I was home by like 10.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 255. And one of the first time, Vigs, I've been this remote for a podcast.
Yeah, we've done it with me and a Civic. We've done it with me and DC. We did one together in Tampa.
That was good.
And now we've got an international show.
Yes, I am currently in the Dominican Republic, so you all can suck it. It's hot and humid here.
It's going to warm up here eventually, but it's good for the outdoor rinks.
Next week when I come back, it's going to be in the 30s. I'm just perfectly fine with that. So I'm definitely rubbing it in because this is the first time I've ever had a vacation that actually line up with bad weather in Minnesota. So I'm all for it. But first, we need to bring in a guest. And, we thought since it was going to be a little sketchy with connection here. It's probably not the greatest video, but hopefully you all could hear me pretty well. We thought we didn't want to have Vigo be solo in case we had issues. So we scheduled Cappy. And of course we scheduled Cappy because it's Ohio State week. Let's bring him in. Cappy, how's it going, man?
I mean, apparently it's not going as good as for you. But,
come on. How many times have you podcasted from Florida?
Not enough. I mean, clearly that never gets old. No, I'm happy for you. I'm surprised your tan isn't that good right now. You're maybe hiding in the shade or what?
I hide the shade and use a lot of sunblock because otherwise I would be a lobster.
I can see that.
I'm like the whitest.
You can see the light tint.
Oh yeah, I wear a shirt, one of those swim shirts because otherwise I would just be so hot if I got burned. So I just avoid it. So.
He doesn't have that Italian blood like you do, Cappy, where you just instantly go bronze.
Jupe goes more red. Italian, so I get red first, and then it molds itself into a brown. So the Italian comes in at the end.
Maybe tomorrow, our last full day, I'll get out and get a good, good color, good.
Just do it.
Burn going.
You only live once. You only live once, man.
I mean, my arms are.
Do it.
No, it doesn't even show up on the camera. I give up.
Yeah, there's no watch.
There kind of is, but
barely.
It's hard to pick it up on this video. It's not a good video. So what do you do? But Viggs, actually, let's talk some hockey here. Robert Morris came in this past weekend. Minnesota swept him. I would say the fans were probably disappointed the scores were so low.
I think everyone is expecting double Culvers from the weekend.
And they got nothing. No Culvers.
No Culvers. It very easily could have been based on the amount of shots Minnesota put up over the weekend. Robert Morris got great goaltending from each of their goaltenders against Minnesota. The Gophers put up nearly 30 shots in the first period on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
There were moments of the weekend where it looked like Robert Morris might be dangerous on the counterattack, but the Gopher goaltending played pretty well. I thought the Gophers did well to limit the chances against. And as I told Bob after Saturday, I was like, how do you feel about a weekend where your D didn't touch the stove? You didn't see them diving down below the goal line too often. And so they played a pretty smart weekend and got what they needed out of it, which was 2 wins. So it really helped them survive a pairwise scare against Robert Morris.
Definitely. But tell me about Erie. What did Coach Motzko say about Erie's performance Friday night after his first regular season start?
I mean, they brought him to the Minnesota to play games. And if he hadn't had his injury the entire first half, he obviously would have been playing part of the rotation with Close.
Okay.
I don't think they were going to do a straight rotation, but they brought him in to play games. You know, he had played 2,000-minute seasons in the junior ranks 2 years in a row, a lot of experience. He's a big goaltender, and he looks very technically sound. He moves well. He's not out of position. He's got good rebound control. You know, the goals he gave up, you know, one of them was a weird tip that not many goalies are going to be able to react to, and the other was a power play shot where he was screened late in the game. So maybe a little bit of conditioning came into that as well. But I think Minnesota showed that they've got 2 goalies now, that if something happens, they've got someone they can rely on.
And on the Ohio State side, who did they play this weekend, Cappy?
You don't know? You're that detached?
I'm pretty. Was it Notre Dame? They split with Notre Dame, didn't they?
They finally got their first conference win.
They did.
Which actually put them over 500 for their record for a night. So
for a night.
For a night. And that, I mean, that literally they're last place in the league, but they're 9-9 and 4. So they didn't lose in non-conference play all year. Didn't have an overly tough schedule, but they went to Omaha on the road and won and tied there. That's their best, non-conference wins. But they're I think they're finally at full strength. I still think they're probably right, in the bottom 2-3 teams in the league. But they showed they can win. They beat Notre Dame, so I think that's kind of off their back or not thinking about that. They got Joe Dunlap back, who was a 14-goal scorer last year. He missed the whole first half. I mean, they need every piece of offense they can get because they just don't have the depth. So they'll be I think a little tougher. I mean, they played Minnesota really well, obviously, a month plus ago. And so we'll see. I mean, obviously it's a much different story when you go into Mariucci. And I think Minnesota, in my mind, I said this a couple times now. In my mind, for them in the pairwise, the Big Ten standings, I don't know. To me, it's all about the NCAA tournament. Yes. For many teams, this is a must sweep for Minnesota if you're looking at wanting to get a little comfortable. Because if you split, you're going to go down a little because it's a home split against a team not too low, but I mean they're in the 20s. So this is a must sweep, or at least a win and a tie situation for Minnesota.
Yeah. One thing you made sure to do this weekend over Friday and Saturday is chirp both Vigo and I about the women's team at Ohio State leveling the women's team at Minnesota.
I couldn't believe it when I saw the scores. I mean, I know that they have a really good team, but to go into Ritter and do that 13-1, has Minnesota ever had that happen to them? Ever?
I doubt it. I doubt it.
Maybe Wisconsin. Maybe it would be the.
But not that many goals, though.
No, a plus 12.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had to try. Come on. I mean, you just don't see that. I mean, I was as surprised as anyone, but that's pretty good stuff.
And after his final tweet on Saturday, I basically replied to him, "Not sober, don't care."
That was a great response. That's what I would have said.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Jupe's going to have to go tarps off here in a minute. He keeps getting I am just sweating beads out here. It's like 80 and the dew point is 76. I am just sweating like a maniac here. The fat guys sweat. That's just how it is. So Minnesota didn't hurt themselves, Vigs, in the pairwise, which is good. Why didn't Wisconsin? Did they lose a game this weekend?
They tied.
Which feels like a loss.
Did they lose the overtime?
No.
Or shootout or anything like that? It was just a tie.
They won the shootout, but it literally means nothing.
Yeah, it does.
Conference game. So
it didn't hurt them that. I think they might have dropped to 5 or something like that. But that's a close one for the Badgers with how they've been playing.
Yeah, a loss probably would have been a bigger impact, but they've done enough work so far in the season that they've got enough of a cushion to help themselves. They're in a much different situation than Minnesota, where Minnesota needed to come through with regulation wins against their opponents. So, the Badgers still are going to be tough in the second half. the big test for them is now the expectations are going to be placed on Hastings and the Badgers to come through in the second half. The first half, they were pretty much a surprise. Go from 7th in the Big Ten to 1st is quite the turnaround, and we'll see what happens and how they handle it in the second half.
So you were telling me something interesting before we started here that a certain Robert Morris coach was kind of looking for you this past weekend, wasn't he?
Yeah, I gave a little chirp to Schooley in the Us Show podcast where he spilled the beans on Robert Morris scheduling this series to happen over World Junior, but Minnesota made a request. Can we bump it back a little bit? I said, when you're getting a check for $49,500 from the University of Minnesota, you're probably willing to negotiate the dates of the series. So they moved it so the Gophers could get their World Junior players back. And after the game on Saturday, he came into the availability and stood up in front of the Minnesota banner. He said, "Hey, is that guy who chirped me on Twitter here tonight? Is he here? Where is he?" And I go, "Right here." And
you're a big guy. Never mind.
I'm
Sorry.
6'2" and 275. So I'm like, "I'm right here, Derek." And he's like, "It's all in good fun. We're happy to be here." He was pleased with the way his team played. I think they made it difficult on Minnesota at times during the weekend. They really packed it in the slot, forced Minnesota to take shots from the perimeter. The nice thing for Minnesota is that they did have pressure around the net. That's something that Steve Miller especially reinforces in practice all the time. You have to have a player in front of the net providing traffic, and you have to have a second player ready to pounce. And Minnesota did that. Their first 2 goals on Friday were like that, and they did that again on Saturday.
Very nice. Well, I know we want to get into a great article by our guy Schlossman. But first, let's hear from our sponsors.
Jake Middleton here, Director of Hair and Hygiene for the Minnesota Wild. How did I get this important role with the team, you ask? I'd like to think it was because of hard work, but the truth is, I run hot. Yep, I'm a sweater. In my role as Director of Hair and Hygiene, I'm sort of like a player coach. Let me pull out the grease board here. Well, it's not actually a grease board, because there is nothing dirty about Duke Cannon. How do I help the guys stay squeaky clean? Helpful reminders. It's simple. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Say it with me. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Pick the scent that suits you. Sawtooth. Thick body wash. Extra thick. And my favorite, Midnight Swim. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Duke Cannon. Work harder, smell better.
Are you tired of the same old fundraisers? Paying $15 for a stale bag of popcorn, chocolate candy bars melting in your car, and more frozen pizzas than you have freezer space? Introducing Ferda Fundraisers, a fundraising company with as much personality as the people who play the game.
Lift big, throw gas, hit dingers.
Big dump for the boys.
Choose from great products made by local companies, flexible plans built around your needs. Sell how you want and be supported from start to finish. Deliver max return without charging people a fortune. It's never been easier to support your community. Ignite your fundraising with Ferda Fundraisers. Ferda Boys, Ferda Girls, Ferda Community, Ferda Fundraisers.
Of course, we thank Ferda Fundraisers and Duke Cannon for sponsoring the GPL Cast podcast. This is all Duke Cannon for me, Vigs, all week. Nothing but Duke Cannon here.
Tarp on, though. Keep the tarp on for a little bit longer.
Got to keep the tarp on. I'm not taking that off here. That would just be ugly. So I missed kind of an article over the past couple of days since I was down here. You sent it over to me. Mr. Schlossman, the Grand Forks Herald, Vigs, putting out some great stuff of what should be done with the NCAA Regionals. Tell us about it.
Well, I think Schlossman hit it note for note on the arguments for moving to on-campus sites for the NCAA tournament. And he proposed, those first 2-round games, campus sites at the high seed is what you should do. It's what they do in a lot of other tournaments for the NCAA, and it makes so much sense. And he got quotes from David Carl from DU supporting it. He had Buchagras chiming in the article. Then on Twitter, he was saying it's time. He had Mike Cross from Penn State, talking about the revenue that you could generate by moving to campus sites. And it's not just small money either. It's like a $2 million difference to go from these regionals where even best case, you're getting 70 to 80% of the fans in the building. And you're just hoping that the host team or a team in the area makes the tournament to even make that possible. So if you move to these campus sites, it's just going to be a better atmosphere, better for the student athletes, better revenue, and probably fair for the teams that make the tournament. If you get a top 8 seed, you get a home game. You've earned it. And it was interesting. He looked back at some of the historical data. There's a lot of teams that would have had home games over the last decade that you wouldn't expect. And it would just be fun for college hockey to see that atmosphere, because when you have those empty regionals, it doesn't make for good TV and it doesn't make for a good experience.
No, it definitely doesn't. Cappy, I'm guessing you may have paid in a regional or two like that, but in your day, it still kind of was some home campus sites.
It was, and I think that's one of it changed because of Michigan, or it was a big reason. But that was a predetermined, it was just the same, except for they made Ann Arbor one of the regionals. So it was the same kind of scenario. They literally put the regional in a home rink in Ann Arbor. And twice, I think in my 4 years, Michigan, or my 4 years right around them, they hosted it as the 4 seed. And they beat the number 1 seed both times in a packed Yost Ice Arena. And I think it was Colorado College once and maybe Denver the other time. And that had a big uproar. And that had something to do with staying away from anything like that. This is clearly a different idea, and I actually like it. Because in my mind at first, when I was thinking about this, I thought they were talking about the 4 number 1 seeds would get the home, and then they'd host the regional. And I didn't mind it, but like they said, if, the number 1 seed gets knocked out, that regional final could look ugly in terms of attendance. So I do like this scenario where there's going to be a home ice for every game. The home team is going to have what you would think a full barn, or most places in the country. Late March, no one's on spring break anymore, which that's not really a concern, I don't think. So I did like everything. And then when you get David Carl, who's now, a top 5 successful coach, and even he said, they've won, and they haven't had, they've had to do it this way. They weren't getting home ice. So he's not complaining like he's had, everything go his way to get to where their success has. He's all for this. Buchagras is big because he knows some of those small rinks out east, are they TV friendly or not? If they've done some stuff there, then if they can be done, then I don't think it's,
Agreed.
A problem. You can make things work nowadays with technology and with cameras and whatnot.
I think I remember one of those Michigan regionals. It was sort of back then before they expanded to
it might have been 12,
16 teams. It was a super regional. So because Minnesota came out of Michigan in 2002 and Michigan came out of there. So I believe Minnesota and Michigan had the bye games. And then 2 other teams, played each other to play Minnesota, 2 other teams to play Michigan. And then Minnesota and Michigan met in the Frozen Four in St. Paul that year. So then I believe the next year they might have gone to 16. But
yeah, the 16 happened during my years. So we made the tournament 03 and 04, my last 2 years, and those were 16. I think my 01, 02, maybe the first year, or it might have been 03. My first, our first tournament might have been 16. But I think now there's a really good template out there for the coaches to look at now and have people study it, and then literally, look, no offense to anyone, but take more than a fucking friggin' vacation in Naples in April and get this done.
Well, Vonner has kind of a question here. How would that work with travel between games 1 and 2 of Eags?
Well, they'd be a week apart.
Every weekend, yeah.
So you'd probably have your Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games spread out for TV. And then you'd have a more condensed, Friday, Saturday, week 2, where you're just having basically your regional finals the next week. And then the week after that, you'd have your Frozen Four. So right now, they take that week off. Now you just have 3 weeks in a row to get ready for the national championship. And I think it'd be great. Like right now, you'd have Minnesota going to Maine. You'd have UMass going to play Quinnipiac. You'd have St. Cloud going to Wisconsin. I mean, these would be great first-round matchups with packed houses.
But would they even need to? I mean, the season is so spread out. Could they take out some of that break time or something and just, maybe move up their tournaments? We know that BigTen could use to move up the tournament and condense it a little more. You would think that they could maybe condense it and just still keep a 2-week break.
I'm for that. I mean, I'm for condensing the Christmas break. Like, it's ridiculous how long. Like, you could easily play another week.
At the beginning,
the 9th,
yes,
10th is the last weekend. Why not play the 16th, 17th? School might be out, but most places, like student-wise, it's fine. Like, finals are over, or they're in finals, but every other sport doesn't stop for a month. Like, it's when I played, you had a tournament. We had about 2 weeks off, maybe 2.5. You got to go home for 7-8 days. You came home and you played a tournament right after. The way the schedule's so spread out now for a lot of teams, and I get it for World Junior reasons. I know Minnesota and with Michigan specifically do that. Had an interesting talk with Adam Nightingale about that, and I'll tell you that answer in a second. But I just think it's just it shouldn't. You don't need to condense. You could easily condense the season a little bit. Is, I guess, the long answer I gave on that. But Adam Nightingale, so talked to him last week before our game and asked him about that now that he's going to have players going to World Juniors. And he said, you know what? We're going to rely on our depth. We're not going to schedule. They've signed a contract to play in the GLI for 4 more years, no matter what. So he did not bat an eye at that. He's going to have his team, whoever he played, the way it's played. So I thought that was interesting.
So, Viggs, how are you going to get those small schools to get on board with this? Because honestly, it would be better for the game. It'd get better for showcasing the game when you're having the playoffs with full arenas. That's kind of one of the topics that Schloss was talking about. But how do you get these other schools on board? Because they have just been such blockers on this.
Well, I think first off, you have to get a strong voting block of NCHC, Big Ten coaches, get some CCHA coaches on board that this is how it's going to work. Hockey East as well. But I think some of those Hockey East teams, some of them think we've got enough nice venues out east where it doesn't impact us. And it's an advantage for us to have 3 regionals out east. So I think there's that selfishness of some of those coaches that's going to come into play. So I think you really need the West to unite and really get everybody on board and get as many other schools on board as you can, because it's just hypocrisy from those Eastern coaches. You look at how they run their conference tournaments now. Most of them are using campus sites all the way through from first round to championship. If they're doing it for that, why can't they do it for the NCAAs? Get them to understand the revenues are going to go up. At least $1 or $2 million more going to NCAA in a profit-making tournament if they do this right. And it's going to be better for the players. And if you look at history, those Eastern teams are going to get home games, especially right now. I look at the top 8, BU, BC, Quinnipiac, Maine, all getting home games. Providence right on the bubble. That's pretty good for them. And they just have to see that it's going to be an advantage for them just as much as anyone else.
And some of it's just about fairness, too. I mean, we've seen how many times, like Mankato from a few years ago having to go to a Providence regional where Providence was the 4 seed. They got penalized for being the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that don't get what they deserve, but the fair is where you go to buy a pig in the fall. It doesn't apply to college hockey.
Now, the one maybe hiccup, I think I message you guys on this is are we trying to avoid the conference versus conference matchup? Because before, I think there was a game Tuesday that moved the bracket but it was North Dakota was 6 and Western Michigan was 11, and they would be playing in that first round. Are you looking to do that, tweaking a little, or 1 year it might line up where you could have 2 or 3 NCHEs playing 2 Big Tens, or Hockey East has 6 teams possibly this year, or 5. I'm just saying down the road, that's one maybe thing you gotta have some kind of rule or adjustment process.
I don't know. I say let's let it roll. Let's have some excitement. That's one of the things they want to do. I mean, could you imagine North Dakota having to go into Western or something like that first game?
I think every time I've heard the NCAA D1 hockey committee people talk about swapping teams around, they're comfortable with it because the margins between like 12 and 13 are so small.
Sure.
Like just looking right now, we've seen St. Cloud in New Hampshire. It's 5-6-2-5 and 5-6-2-3. That is a very minuscule difference between those two in the rankings. And I think the coaches are like, we like the pairwise because it determines who gets into the tournament, and it's cut and dry. And going into the end of the year what you need to do. But there is probably some wiggle room to move seeds around to keep
as long as the top
conferences
8 are
apart.
at home.
Yeah, the top 8 are going to be at home. You earn that home. It's the other 8 that probably get swapped around a little bit.
Right.
Our guy Gator, how many campuses would have arena issues keeping the arenas available for the possibility of a weekend 1 or weekend 2 game?
They do it for women's hockey. There's a bunch of D3 hockey schools that figure it out.
Isn't Wisconsin one of the problem places because of like the state basketball tournament? There's something like that around playoff time, isn't it?
What are they going to prioritize? They finally got a hockey coach there who's winning, so maybe they'll prioritize hockey.
Yeah, but a lot of times, it's already predetermined. I don't know, just something to think about.
Well, like Vig was talking about, if you're going to have 8 games that one weekend, you probably have 3 days. You maybe not want to have Sunday, or maybe you're thinking Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You have those 3 days to kind of, Wisconsin, the Kohl Center's got something on Thursday, so Wisconsin's got to be on Friday or Saturday, or vice versa. Or Ohio State with, the Schottenstein Center's availability, whatever the case is. I just know those places are bigger and they'll have concerts or whatever going on there. If you have those 3 days, you can kind of, massage it. Hopefully it's not all 3 days it's taken up or whatever case. I think there's some room there for that.
But also too, if they decide kind of now, Wisconsin and the Kohl Center would have 2 years to kind of prepare and kind of maybe block off some of this stuff.
The key is
I could see it last second, but we're going to do it this year. Yeah, it wouldn't work this year, but
the key is
they do have a couple years.
The key is the vote this year, though, right? Because this is when they start doing the next 4-year block.
Yes,
2 years, I think, for the region. I thought I read 2 years.
I believe it's 2.
Frozen 4, I think, is a 4-year block, and that might be a year out. But I think that's the key. Is this would start 25, 26, 26, 27?
26, 27, I think.
26, 27. So you have 2 more years after this of what we already have.
Well, here's the deal. I think it's on the coaches to keep this topic relevant. Keep talking about it. Don't let it go by the wayside. And also, we got a vote coming up, and I kind of forgot about it or whatever. So, Vigs, they need to keep it going.
Well, I think every coach on the East Coast should have to respond to this on record about their perspective, especially if they're going to vote against it. People should be asking those coaches what they think, just so we get a counter argument, because Brad has laid it out pretty well. And if you're going to go against it, I want point by point responses to each one, because I just don't see how it makes sense to continue doing what we're doing. And even when it works well, it doesn't actually work that great.
Well, what you need to happen this year is to have like 3 Hockey East or 3 East teams get number 1 seeds, and at least one of them is going to get sent to Sioux Falls or St. Louis, that the regional St. Louis this year. And I'm pretty sure that team would probably vote the other direction come April if that were. And if they're going to get knocked out, they're playing in front of 800 people in or whatever.
In St. Louis. In St. Louis.
right, against
Maine
North
has to go to
Dakota,
St. Louis for some weird reason.
and they're playing North Dakota. And North Dakota travels, and they'll have 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 people will come down to that, and they'll get knocked out in the first round or whatever. Maybe. Maine's an interesting one because they're kind of just back in the party, a little bit. Even BU and BC BU has been good a couple of years now, but BC struggled recently too. So it'd be interesting to see if they get kind of the quote unquote shaft and get sent west as a number 1 seed. Maybe that would sway their, mind.
I mean, I'm thinking there's a pretty good chance you could have like a Michigan or a St. Cloud or a Minnesota be a 3 or 4 seed out west. And a top East team is going to have a tough road.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen this boat. I haven't known what the actual, how far apart it is and whatnot. I don't think anyone's seen. I think a lot of people thought like me about how it would be 4 regions with a one seed at the 1 seeds. Not, I don't know if it's been seen by the coaches proposed. Has it been that much where they do the single game and then another single game weekend? Has that been proposed before to those coaches?
I don't know if it's happened recently, but I think Schlossman's done a lot of legwork on this to find a proposal that would get the most traction.
That's what I mean. I think this is a new version.
Yeah, because he's highlighted that it wouldn't just work for the top 4 seeds to host 4 teams, because if the host team loses in the first round, that championship or the regional final is not a great venue either.
Right. I just, all the times we've talked about it, that the way he did it, that had not been what I've ever heard or have I thought of to discuss. And I when you stop and think about it, you're like, okay, this could work. That's one. It seems like we're all on board with that.
Yeah. So we need the college hockey media types. You writers out there, ask your coaches, talk about it.
And I think it'll be big, obviously, come March, when regionals are coming around and then the seeds happen. I think if I'm Schlossman, I'm reposting that, and I'm sure Butchergras will now too. He loves college hockey, promotes it like nobody else, and he has the biggest platform of anybody.
Correct.
So yeah, we'll see. But I think that's when it'll gain biggest traction. Then that's 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they're in Naples the week after the Frozen Four, I believe, or 2 weeks after.
All right, we're going to put you on hold here for a second, Cappy, as we start to talk about our guys at Chill Boys Vigs. I'm wearing them down here in the Dominican right now. And you know why? Because it's hot.
Yeah. And when you're in a hot situation, you want something that's going to chill the boys down low. They've got 3 options for you now: the bamboo boxers, bamboo boxer briefs, and performance boxers. And, if you want that relaxed fit, snug fit, or something fancy with some, high tech material, Chill Boys have got you. Use Pull Tab 15 for 50% off on your order online. Comfort where it counts.
Yeah, we can't thank them enough for being a sponsor of the GPL podcast. And, of course, who else do we have on board, Vigs? One of my favorite places, Cub Foods.
Cub Foods, it's one of your local companies that supports local sports. They're on PJ Flex headset. They sponsor Pull Tab Sports. They sponsor us, the Wild on 7th podcast. And they're just a great neighborhood grocery store. If you need something for a party, they're a store that's going to have it in stock for you. And, if you're looking for some beverages to go along with that party, check it out. They've got a lot of wine and spirits now at Cub Foods around town.
Yes.
Give them a shot.
Yeah, I love those little cinnamon donuts they have. Can never get it. When Barb goes to Cub, she's always getting the cinnamon and the glazed donuts for us at Cub. So great stuff. So we thank Cub for being a sponsor of the GPL podcast. All right, let's bring Cappy in. We've got Ohio State coming to town this weekend, Vigs. Ohio State's playing better. They played Minnesota pretty damn well. Not very long ago, and in the last week of December there.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's a dangerous team. The fact that they just got their first Big Ten win last weekend against a tough Notre Dame team, means that they might be finding their game a little bit more. Stephen Halliday is a great player for them. I got to imagine Steve Miller was recruiting him out of Dubuque when he was a 1.5 game scorer there. He's a dangerous player for them. And so it's something that Minnesota has to be careful with defending him. You want to make sure who's on the ice against you. Sometimes I think Minnesota forgets that part of the game management is, when you're out there against the third or fourth line, you can maybe get away with more than you can when Stephen Halliday's on the ice. He's a big 6'3", 6'4" player who is pretty deceptive and good around the net. So I'll be interested to see how Minnesota plays against him.
Cappy, what are your initial thoughts?
It's man, you talk about Halliday. He's a good player. Man, I'll tell you, the guy that's really helped him offensively is a defenseman. Scooter Bricky's got 9 goals. I mean, that's pretty good stuff. He had the game winner against Notre Dame. They're just like they got Caden Brown back. He's a solid offensive player, and Joe Dunlap. They have a little more depth up front, but they're just they got to play hard. They got to play smart. They got to play with the lead. If Minnesota gets a couple goals on them, they're not going to chase the game very well. They haven't changed. They're going to play hard. They like I said, they took 2 points or 1 point. Was it 1 point? What was it? A win, a tight win against Minnesota, and then a tie last
with the shootout point
December
going
10th.
to
Shootout point that Ohio State got. I mean, you could argue there were long stretches in that series where Ohio State was the better team, or at least we're outplaying them.
Yes.
Just by having a little more energy and just being hard on pucks. They got to play that. They're not a high skill team. They got to make things hard on Minnesota. Maybe last weekend was a good tester for Minnesota, having Robert Morris, and like you said, how they caved in front and made Minnesota shoot from a side. I think the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to have to do the same thing. Their goaltending, we'll see. They've kind of gone a little bit with the freshman now. He got that second game against Minnesota, and I thought he played pretty well. He struggled last week, or I don't know if the goals were really his fault. A couple tips in front and whatnot, but Turnus played really well in the win on Friday night. I think they were trying to do the every other game thing. But the Buckeyes got a shot. I think it's on Minnesota. Minnesota's got to carry the play. I mean, they have to realize that they're in a not do or die situation, but they're at we're getting to the home stretch.
Mm-hmm.
12 games left. You got 6 weekends with an off weekend, and I think if Minnesota's going to have to play with some major intensity to come out of there with 6 points.
I guess one good thing that I did see this weekend, Viggs, is that Mason Nevers finally got a goal.
He did. Bryce Brodzinski found Nevers in a perfect spot. Nevers had plenty of time to pick his corner, and he took advantage of it. And you could just see the relief on his face and the excitement of Brodzinski and all his teammates that he finally got a goal. And, we were asking Nevers after the game, what it has been like for him this year. He got injured in the Bemidji State with a kind of a reckless hit in a game that didn't mean anything by a Bemidji State player who was looking for a head to hunt.
Yep.
And it was just a nasty play. And that really set Nevers back. And he talked about how, his head is finally clear, which for a guy who went through a concussion is a pretty significant telling quote. He has not been himself the first half, and he felt like he was behind the 8 ball with his conditioning just because he couldn't push himself the way he wanted to, recovering from that injury. And he was just behind the 8 ball. And having that winter break, as much as we probably want the college hockey season to keep going and not take such time off, it was good for Nevers to reset. And he said he's gone from practice conditioning to game conditioning to now close game conditioning, and he feels like he's back. And for his line to work, Nevers has to be back.
Yes, that's kind of what I was getting at here, Viggs, because they need them. They need that line big time. And, the occasional, goal by Brodzinski or whatever, they need Nevers to perform to go anywhere this season.
Because Brodzinski's been able to get some points, but they haven't driven play like they did last year. And that's really what they need is they need another line that can really move the chains, as Bob will sometimes say, and get that ground game going. If Nevers is truly back and he has a good weekend against Ohio State, that gives this team a lot more confidence to play in close games.
Yeah, I was just getting yelled at by the wedding couple a couple stories down here. They saw me up here podcasting, so.
What are you doing working up there? I mean, that's as veteran line as you can get, right? You have 2 fifth-year guys and a fourth-year senior. And, seeing Nevers in person that weekend in Penn State, he did have one really good chance to hit the post. Kind of same scenario as he scored on this time. But I was just watching him. I'm like, he doesn't look like a guy. He doesn't look right. Or you know what I mean? Like, he's able to play. He's just not looking like he can do everything he wants to do. And they need him to do that. If that line can get going in the second half, the way Snuggerud started the second half, you got 2 lines there, and then you hope Hugelin can get going a little more too. But man, if Nevers gets going and that, kind of energizes that line, man, that makes the Gophers a way different offensive team.
What else is on your mind, Biggs? I mean, I want to go to predictions here, but for me, you got to prove it to me. They still haven't. So for me, I'm thinking split right away here because they still haven't shown us that they can win 2 games against, not Robert Morris yet.
Yeah, I think this team is showing some signs. Especially I like the way Rinzel and Chesley have come back from the World Junior. I feel like they're making better decisions. I joked about earlier about not touching the stove all weekend. Rinzel still is generating offense. I think he had 7 assists in the last 4 games.
Yeah.
And he did that without being reckless. I think we saw in the first half, a lot of times he would take the puck into the zone and then be like, oh, I'm going to get pressure here. And I'm not sure what to do with it. As we've seen the last couple of weeks, he's able to get in the rush and not put himself in bad situations and take care of the puck. And I think for Minnesota to take the next step, they have to be good about puck possession plays, putting pucks into areas where they can get it back and support each other. So I thought they did that really well against Robert Morris. Now they had a ton of space because Robert Morris really packed it in and didn't pressure him on the outside. But I think you might see a similar look with Ohio State, just with higher end players.
I think with Rinzel, I think the first half he's trying to figure out what he could get away with, what he couldn't get away with by trial and error to an extent. Because he's got the talent. He's 6'4", he can skate. I just watch him man, I'm very jealous of how easy he makes it look, kind of gliding up the ice. So, without taking many strides. So you see it so many times. Those guys come back from World Juniors, and it's like they're veterans. Even Oliver Moore has had a nice start to the second half. I think it's more when he needs to gain some strength. He needs an off season, in the weight room, and put on 5 to 7 pounds of muscle. You don't want to do it all in one summer, but gradually, because he does a lot of smart things out there with his putt, with his stick, or makes little plays, but he's not able to win all those battles. He wins the speed battle, but he's not winning the physical battles that you're like, man, he's close, but he's not quite there because he just gets out muscled he's a young guy still. But if those guys do have better second halves, a couple with Nevers, the defense, that's where the biggest difference for Minnesota in the second half. If that defense plays well, that's where they could go on a 4 or 5 game winning streak.
So I'm still going to predict a split. Cappy, what are you predicting?
I'm going to predict a win and a tie. Minnesota win and a who knows wins the over. They'll go to overtime. Shoot, I'm going to take Minnesota in overtime in the second game. That's what I'm doing. So 2 wins for Minnesota, but that doesn't equal a full win, right?
Okay, how about so that's basically 5 points to 1.
Right.
So 5 points.
Correct.
Okay, we'll switch a little bit. How many
But
points?
they get more pairwise points for an overtime win as opposed to a shootout. You don't want to go to a shootout, remember? Minnesota does not want to go to a shootout because they're not going to win it.
Because they think.
Or score a goal, right?
Yeah, there is that. Okay, Viggs, how many points then?
I'm predicting 6 for
Oh!
Minnesota this week.
Ooh, it's the reverse. The guys are flipping.
I just feel like this team had a good warm-up with CC and Robert Morris coming into the series. I'm seeing a lot of positive signs with them. The one thing I'm worried about right now is their power play hasn't looked as dynamic as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got a player like Jimmy Snuggerud on one of your units and you've got a talent like Sam Renzel quarterbacking, there should be more danger and chaos out of that unit. And I think they're still trying to find that chemistry and figure out how to move the puck fast and create those chances. Maybe because they're so focused on getting the puck to Snuggerud on the power play. But I think they got to change things up. Like when they moved Pitlick and Snuggerud down to the goal line and they did that spread power play, I thought that was a great kind of change up for them. I think that's something they need to kind of integrate into their philosophy for a weekend, is to throw that out there every once in a while. I don't know if they will, but I think it's something to take a penalty kill and get them off base and maybe get their power play going a little bit so they're just not so robotic. But I really like the play of everybody. Right. Oliver Moore, he's developing a little bit like Rhett Pitlick did. You know, he came in with just lots of speed and trying to beat people one-on-one. He's developing a little bit more possession to his game. And I think that bodes well for Minnesota in the second half.
I with Jimmy Snuggerud, I think you should move him. He should be all over the ice in the power play. Like, he should not be sitting on that, top of the circle on the OV spot. Like, I like him down low. I like him in the bumper. Like, get him in the high bumper spot. Because what that's every team is going to be like, where is he? And it's like, send the direction this way. And then, oh, wait, Pitlick's open on the weak side because Snuggerud's in the middle. We don't know how to, so with that power play thing, I think you move him around and you make him dangerous from everywhere and make teams adapt to them. You were still around for the CC games, right? Jupe, you saw those goals. Like, what are we talking? I mean, those are NHL. I mean, he's an NHL player, but like those were just get him the puck in different areas is what I would be if I was coaching a power play for him, because he can score from anywhere. And
it's crazy
so quickly.
Motzko was talking about comparing Snuggerud's shot to someone in the NHL, and he's just like, no one. He's like Mike Bossy. He's like, we got to go back and find somebody from history to compare to how good Snuggerud is at catching and shooting. His release is just so quick, and that CC was awesome.
Yeah, he's just found it right now too. He's got that corner picked, any corner really. So. That obviously will be a big determinant on the weekend too, as if he goes off for 3 or 4 goals, sayonara, that's 6 points most likely going to the Gophers. So, not to put a ton of pressure on him or anything, cares, but I could see him hitting 30 this year if he got, you don't see guys what he did, those 5 goals. There was not one that was like, a backdoor tap in or a puck off of his shin guard. I mean, they were all ridiculously great shots. There's a difference.
Well, you were even messaging us about that. You're like, what the hell is going on here?
I mean, because you just don't see a guy score 5 like that in a weekend. You usually get a goal or 2 that's
garbage goal. Yeah.
Anybody, yes. You usually don't score 5 like that.
And then Burko's a pretty good goalie for CC as well. It's not like he was picking them against Stonehill.
Maybe Pearson and him are the top 2 goalies in that conference. So, Jimmy stays hot. Look out.
Let's hope so. Cappy, when you got to be on the hat next?
The hat next?
The hat. When are you going to be on the BigTen network?
The next couple weeks, if anything, I'll just be on the BigTen Today show.
Okay.
Did it yesterday. Next week, I don't know. The following week, I will, and that'll lead. I have my last call of the year will be Ohio State and Michigan. It's a Saturday, I believe. So the next 3 weeks, I think there's one game on BTN on a Saturdays.
Okay.
Your game this Saturday, and I believe you guys playing Michigan State the following weekend. Am I got
Yes.
that right?
Yep.
And then the February 3rd I'll be there in Ohio, Columbus for Michigan, and then the rest of the year will be studio. And I think there's quite a few because there's double headers almost every weekend of February, and that last weekend of March, March 1st and 2nd, I think is the last weekend of games. I think we have a Friday doubleheader. So one more game and then mostly studio. But I did, I got a meeting with the new guy in charge of ESPN tomorrow, but he already asked me to commit to doing another regional. So I'll be doing that. Might try to persuade him to see if I can eke my way onto Frozen Four coverage, but we'll take it one step. We'll take it one step at a time here. But that's exciting to get to do that for a third year in a row. Pumped for that. But yeah, I love, this is the best. It's the worst time outside, but it's the best time inside for hockey as we get closer to the playoffs.
It definitely is. Viggs, are you working on anything?
I've got a few things in the hopper. I'm going to keep them a little under wraps, a little bit of suspense.
Oh, I like that.
But if someone in the chat is looking for tickets,
hey, now
voice your opinion. I've got 2 for Friday to give away tonight. We'll do that sometime during our OT. If we can't find a sufficient person there, maybe we'll get somebody tweeting at us using the GPL podcast tag. So live chat and OT gets first shot.
Start on Friday night. Is it a cozy 7
o'clock?
Yep,
I believe so.
Okay, and
should be a good weekend of hockey.
Saturday's game's a little earlier, right? They have that right.
Same at 7.
Oh, okay.
I think
I might be able to watch Friday. Saturday, my plan lane's at like 8. So
okay, so you're there until Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I hate you.
Says the guy where we see palm trees in his background when he's on the BigTen network.
As he sips his wine too, and
yeah, Barbie brought me my wine while I was after they yelled at me, she came back up. And
hey man, life
gave me a glass of wine.
Hey, life is good. Cheers to that.
Yes, it is. Well, thanks for coming on with us again, Cappy.
You got it, man.
It's always
great.
You
could maybe persuade me during the playoffs, but we'll see.
Maybe
we'll see.
Well, we'll pay you. We'll up your. We'll double your salary.
Send me somewhere warm. Man.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's GPL podcast. We'll be back next week to recap the Ohio State series and preview heading to Monarena and Michigan State. That would be a big one as well. Of course, we got to thank Cappy for coming on the podcast again. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for a little overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast. What you got, Viggs?
Whoa. Thought I heard something pouring.
Yeah, that's right. I've got an 18th Street Brewery, Imperial Blood, Russian Imperial Stout with some dark matter coffee in here.
It's not a bottle of wine?
It's almost.
I mean,
Black as the night. Good one for this time of year.
Very nice.
It's got a Guinness look, but then the top goes kind of orange or brown.
It's very roasty, chocolatey, rich coffee.
Okay.
Really good.
What's the percentage of alcohol in that bad boy?
I don't think this one says on it, but I gotta imagine it's around 10. It's got this cool red light writing on here.
That's a lot of alcohol in that big bottle.
Yeah, it doesn't say. So it's a mystery. I don't know. It's got to be like 4%.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man. You mentioned Michigan State at the end. They look. I don't know if it was playing. I had never seen a team going to Penn State. You talk about Ritter Arena and what happened to Minnesota women. in the last, Penn State, since they've kind of become like a pretty solid, man, I have not seen anybody go in there to do that back-to-back nights. Like, not just the Fry, but the game we did Saturday. Holy, woo, wagon.
Really?
That Levshinov kid, man, he's gonna be the number 2 pick in the draft now, I think.
Yeah, apparently Central Scouting bumped him up.
Now I don't know who's in Europe. I don't know if there's a kid in Sweden or not, but Iserman's down to 8 in Central Scouting.
Yeah.
But this Levshinov kid, he had a goal and 3 assists on Saturday, and his goal was like as the 4th man beating his man up the ice. The guy finds him late, and he just comes down the slot and snipes. And you're like, whoa. So they're the best team right now. Today, they're the best team in the Big Ten. We'll see in 3 weeks or 6 weeks or Big Ten, because I still think Michigan's going to be really good too. They just haven't played in so long, and they played Stonehill last week, which doesn't tell you anything. Man,
I thought Minnesota could have put up 7 or 8 though, Vigs.
Well, I mean, they could have. I thought the Robert Morris goalie played pretty well. It wasn't because of lack of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they'd get one of those games, where it was like 8-1 or something, but because I remember Bob talked about it, how like they hadn't had that weekend off games where, the stress level was down, and that, points, getting a bunch of guys to score and finding their confidence in goal scoring. I remember, I think he was quoted as saying that, or you quoted him as saying that.
Well, because Kester and Nevers both got goals. So that was good for them because they both had been off.
The Nevers one for sure. I mean, Kester is not, you're not looking at him to score a ton of goals, but yeah, Nevers is key. But no, I think we'll get 4 teams. I think those 4 are going to make the tournament, but we'll see unless something happens. But just by watching, I think those 4 will make it. I don't think Notre Dame or Penn State now. Notre Dame, man, it's frustrating watching kind of
falling apart.
Same old every year. Not even falling apart. They win one, lose one, win one, lose one.
Yeah, but
and they have some talent there. They got some nice young guy. That Knuble kid can play, and that Nelson kid. You have a couple of nice freshman forwards, but and you're having Slaggert. He's got 15 goals. That's exactly what you wanted from him. Bischel's doing well, and yet they're still 11-11-2 or whatever it is, the record. But anyway.
It almost feels like they kind of got away from their total defensiveness the last couple of years, and that's costing them.
Well, they bring in these transfers that never played Notre. They come in as 5th-year guys or even 4th-year, 3rd, and they're relied on a lot, and they're not really. They don't have that. They weren't taught that over years. Most guys don't play a ton when they come to Notre Dame as freshmen. They slowly learn that Notre Dame way. And these guys are good enough where they're going to play, but they're not playing that, tight checking game as much.
Because you're definitely able to gain the zone against Notre Dame lately. They're just not as structured and tight through the neutral zone.
Bischel's led the country in saves the last 2 years, right? I mean, they've given up a ton of chances. If he was, say, the Gophers goalie, I mean, what would his numbers be? God, if he was Wisconsin's goalie, I mean, McClellan, you got to give him credit for what he's doing, but come on, it would be scary. So, how are the meals down there?
the meals are good. I just had some steak and pasta and on the beach. It was good. The music was a little loud. It was right behind me. I posted a video right before started the show, and
okay,
the meals are definitely good.
So like you go to different like you're on a resort with multiple restaurants, kind of doing that thing, all inclusive stuff. Yeah.
Yep. You know, they get the standard buffet. They get a steak joint, the hibachi place, a seafood place, Italian,
right,
Mexican, you know, stuff like that. And
nice.
it's been pretty nice. But you were talking about stress levels earlier. We've had some stress levels here this week because while traveling from the airport to our hotel, both of our passports fell out of my bag.
Well, you told us that story.
Well, I told you
well,
that's
you're
where-
not, now you're
the-
Pre-show. That was our pre-show.
that was
Oh,
pre-show.
Right.
But what happened though is that we get to check in. They're like, "Hey, do you have your passports?" I'm like, "No, I don't." We had to actually use our driver's license IDs to check in here.
And then you're in panic mode, right?
We're in
bit.
panic mode. We called the place right away, and they said, "We'll have the guy check check the vehicle." He was still on his way back to the airport, which is about 25 minutes away. And then he comes back on and says, "Can't find anything." I'm like, "Have him come back here. We want to check because I think I might have known where it could have gone." No, there's nothing there. He said he searched it. I speak with someone the next day. No, we couldn't find it. So Monday, I'm starting to freak out and like, we're going to have to get an emergency passport. And we're thinking, I need to go to the consulate in Punta, which is Punta Cana is just up the road, 10 minutes away. Monday, Martin Luther King Day, and the U.S. Embassy and everything, they observe it. So lost a day there besides the weekend. Finally, late in the day, Tuesday, the consulate gets back, but they go, "No, you need to go to the embassy in Santo Domingo, 3 hours away." So a lot of back and forth. Today we got up at 5 a.m., left at 6 to drive the 3 hours to Santo Domingo to get emergency passports. We get in there just in time, get the emergency passports, so we're good there. Start driving back. About 20 minutes in, I get an email. "We found your passports."
Unbelievable.
I'm like, "It took you 5 days to find our passports?" "And we'll bring them over to your resort." Of course, now that we have emergency passports, those passports mean nothing. They're canceled out.
Worthless.
We'd like to get them back, just for that. But I couldn't believe it. I'm like, "Are you effing kidding me?" And let me tell you, Santo Domingo is not a safe place to go. You cannot bring your phone or any electronic device into a U.S. embassy. So we had to leave that with our driver, who couldn't exactly park out front. He had to go park a couple blocks away and just hope he stays there, which he did. So we come out and have to walk a couple blocks in a seedy $3.5 million third world country. It's like 4.5 million people in this town, or whatever it is. And it's like I said, people don't go to the Dominican to see Santo Domingo.
Right.
So we walked down the street. We didn't get bothered. We managed it. And then we found him. I'm like, okay, everything is better now. Until 20 minutes later when we found out they found our passports. So we basically lost an entire day. We got back here at about 2:30. So basically, 8.5 hours of our vacation just gone. But I got to see a lot of Dominican on the road.
You went to Santo Domingo. You probably have never been there ever in your life.
And we'll never go back, hopefully.
Next time you go, when you lose your passport again, now you know the way.
I don't know. Barb is always like, I'm not flying it. I'm not going international anymore. I'm staying home. We can go on road trips.
As long as it's somewhat warm in the winter.
So it's been interesting to say the least. So now tomorrow I'm just going to relax and we'll come back on Saturday. So what's the wine, Jupe? No idea. It's kind of cheap white wine that they've got here. I think we've got a bottle of red in there. They have they gave us a bottle of champagne. They wanted to give us a bottle of hard liquor too. I'm like, I'm not going to drink a whole bottle of like Tanqueray without the tonic and everything else. I could go get those drinks for free.
Gotta love those. You gotta love those all inclusive.
Oh, yeah, definitely good. But
well, if they have some Buffalo Trace, don't pass that up. We got the Stampede to
don't think
St.
you're
Paul
getting that.
going.
That's the one you got to pay $20 for those. Everything else is free.
no, the prices have gone up a bit on Buffalo Trace.
I'm talking just for a drink.
For a drink in the Dominican.
Yeah, they don't have Buffalo Trace here, but Jupe, while you're on
Yeah.
vacation, just drink. No, do not drink straight out of the bottle. That would be dumb. Stick to Hawaii or Puerto Rico. I think Barb would agree from now on. No passport needed.
That's right, Puerto Rico too.
But everything else has been great here. It's just been a stressful week because like it just
They didn't know.
they didn't really start responding until yesterday. And then like, we need this document. We needed this document. I'm like, thank God I brought my laptop to be able to finagle some of that because I can make PDFs. I could send them the documentation. It's just easier to do that type of stuff on a laptop and Outlook than anywhere else than on your phone. So
Thank goodness you had the podcast to bring all that stuff with, right?
I was just telling Barb that earlier tonight. Thank goodness we had for the podcast.
The podcast saved it. I like it.
And it's still early for you guys. It's already 10:30 here.
Oh, is it really?
2-hour difference.
2 hours.
We are in Atlantic time. That's 1 east of Eastern.
Newfoundland time, isn't that? Or
Pretty much. Yeah, and that's why I did the show earlier because I'm like, I'm not starting at 9. I'm not starting at 11:30 our time here for a 9:30 show there. And maybe hopefully Pat Micheletti is watching tonight because he's always complaining we don't start early enough.
Right.
Well, we started early just for you, Pat.
Yeah, just for you, Pat. I was worried.
And hopefully my video and audio has been okay. It seems to have been okay. So
for us, it's been great. So I'm assuming, Viggs, I was worried if he was going to be able to get away. This is a little early. Kids are still awake and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, we're going to have a short shift OT. So we're not going to a shootout tonight.
And that's fine.
Time for beer of the week.
I appreciate you playing, changing the time, Viggs, because like I said, if I would have started at 11:30 here,
I don't have to tell any stories. That's fine by me.
No, we still gotta have any stories. Did you play any hockey in Newfoundland? Is that why you're familiar with the time zone out there? Golf? Anything?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I was just thinking there's an East Coast team in Newfoundland now, and I know because that story about that guy that played a game at 47 years old this week, and he got in a fight.
Really?
This guy, and he was a first-round pick, I think, in the NHL. He played a couple games, but didn't play long in the league, and then he's living in Newfoundland, and they needed a player or something, and he played, and then he fought. And there's an East Coast team. I'm like, man, that's crazy. There's an East Coast team in Newfoundland. The Growl, I think they were. Just found that out through that little story. So, because then the Spin Chicklets guys took it, and that's how it kind of got spread out on, mainstream social media or whatever, but.
Viggs, did you figure out that we have any winners from the chat, or is it something you're going to go to Twitter with?
I think we've got a winner on Twitter. All the people on chat seem like they're already
on X.
On X, sorry. So Brian Myers News on Twitter is going to get a pair of tickets to Friday.
Nice.
So he's got to reach out to me with an email now, and we'll get the tickets transferred. If he doesn't fall through, DM me on X. And maybe you can be the runner-up just in case it doesn't work out.
And he'll repost it, not retweet it.
Right, repost.
Yeah, I for a long time I looked like, what did they actually? Oh, repost. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, they had to change all the verbiage,
Yeah, I still call it Twitter. I don't care.
Oh,
screw you, Elon.
Oh yeah, you're not happy with all those bots.
It's been crazy.
It's a little out of control.
Yeah.
Cappy, have you been hearing from College Hockey Nation about the regional stuff other than what we've been hearing out west?
You're
kind of in the middle. Reaction to the concept?
Not really. I mean, anyone that's I think seen it and read it has loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I haven't really. Nobody's really brought it up to me. I would be happy to talk to anybody about it that's against it. Or I think David. I've had Denver the last 2 years, and we've kind of talked. We talk about it off the cuff, not during stuff for the games. And I was not surprised, but I was glad because he's not a very. He's a pretty quiet guy. He's not going to start too many conversations, but that was one that he was very passionate about.
Clearly well thought out.
Yeah, and I mean, and shoot, I mean, 2 years ago they wanted to throw. They had it in Loveland, and they had 2 sold out games and had the home ice advantage for those. And then last year they were in Manchester and they laid an egg against Cornell. So I think he's had both. Like I said, he had both sides of it, and he still wants it. So I would wish there's a few more coaches, high profile guys that would come out for it. I don't know why they wouldn't. If you are pro that and you've been voting for it to go that way, or like I said, maybe this new way with the 2 different weekends and 1 game each time, and everything's at a home barn. Maybe some of them didn't see it that way, and now they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, let's do this." Like,
yeah, now to get that home game, you just have to be top 8 instead of top 4.
Right. I think it's and it's 1 game, and then you're playing the next. Like I said, if the weekends stay the same, it's not a big hurdle to be in, St. Paul this year. Well, that first year, no, it wouldn't be. Dang, the last year is Vegas of the deal. That's the way it is now. So whatever the first Frozen Four they pick for 2027, that would be the first year possibly of the changing this way. But I'm definitely hoping I'm in the mix for whatever Frozen Four scenario is in 2026 to go to Vegas. I mean, to see that arena, that place looks awesome. T-Mobile, or I think it's T-Mobile.
Definitely a loud place.
But
be fun to see where the Us Show party is in Vegas.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Go see the Blue Man Group. But yeah, I know. I this is the first time I feel like it's been all positive reactions about it, and you're getting high profile people talking about it. So
I think it's going to be important for, like someone from BC, BU, Providence to kind of state what they think as well.
Yep.
That's going to be a key piece there.
Even Rand Pecknell at Quinnipiac would be a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he not want to have? I mean, they're almost slam dunk to get 1 game every year now.
Right.
That league, no offense to that league, but that league is just soft.
Well, and the transfer portal kills that league because a lot of those teams can't take advantage of it.
Yeah, the Ivies for sure.
So it's a huge advantage for Quinnipiac.
And why would you not want to have 2 in your barn, or at least 1? So we'll see. I hope it's, I don't know.
And with the investment that BC and BU seem to be putting in NIL, they think they're going to be top 8 teams. Why would you want to give that up?
Have a home game or 2.
Mm-hmm.
They both have 2 this year. Mostly, I mean, if it stays generally close to that. Well,
let's go.
Let's see. What are we saying?
It'd be so fun. It'd be so fun for college hockey.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Oh,
it'd be fun. I mean, and then you'd maybe that 8, so you'd have 8 games. You could probably do like 2 Thursday, 3 Friday, 3 Saturday if you want to do something like that. I mean, I guess you could stretch to Sunday. That's the first weekend. That's when the Sweet 16 is going on in basketball. So that's those 4 days anyway. So whatever, it is what it is. And then you could somehow maybe avoid the Final Four by playing, I don't know, Thursdays and Friday. Because the Final Four for basketball is that Saturday, Monday. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it really matters for TV or whatever. If they're, I don't think it would matter for attendance. I mean, if, BU or if Minnesota's got a home game and they're playing in the regional final, they're going to fill Mariucci. Could you imagine having that, a regional final at Mariucci playing North Dakota or St. Cloud or even Michigan, any team really? I mean,
anyone. I think Minnesota fans would love to see like a BC, BU, Quinnipiac.
Yeah,
I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah, and they'd fill it. It'd be packed.
And they've never had problems with the Frozen Four games, so this just fixes everything, I think, for the tournament.
And it looks good too. it looks good. You know,
Well, that was
Yeah,
part
I
of
mean,
his article. He's saying, like, you know, it's on TSN in Canada, and they're potential, you know, Canadian kids. Oh, what's this playoff hockey in front of 3 people?
Yeah, this important game, and then the winner of this is going to go play in front of 19,000 people, sellouts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in whatever city other than Buffalo they go to, because that's the only city that they haven't done that well. It'll be interesting to see how it does in St. Louis next year. Not overly. I think that's kind of I don't know how they get this regional and then they're getting that again. Detroit kind of got screwed. I think it would do better now with the rise in Michigan and Michigan State. I guess they weren't doing very well with ticket sales that year for Little Caesars of the COVID year. That's what I heard. So then that's why they didn't get another one immediately. But I don't know. I feel like people would come out to that.
Keep going back to Tampa. That's all I care about. That was so good.
It should be in every 4-year block.
Yep.
Without question. And it's
I'm with you.
And 80% of that has nothing to do with the weather. It's the way they treat it there. They treat it like
they do.
It's cold. And then the surrounding area is just perfect in terms of there's a lot of hotels, and it's not a gigantic downtown.
And there's banners all over downtown.
They just had the volleyball, women's volleyball Final Four. I mean, clearly, they've become like the premier place. You know,
and there's enough stuff in Tampa close to the arena and the hotels to walk a lot of places. So it makes it really nice to walk to all those events and walk to the different gathering spots and get the vibe.
Yep. And like I said, everyone, you would go there, and if Minnesota's not there, I'm on vacation, I'll go to see the great hockey too. You know what I mean? A lot of people buy it in advance, and hopefully their team's there. And if not, well, I'm still going for my 4 days in Tampa for the weather, for that 20%. But I'd love to see Nashville. That would be a fun one, I think. I think I brought that up before.
I thought that was going to come out. You think Nashville might get one of the next ones, isn't it?
Well, you got to have somebody be the host to bid there, too. I don't know. I heard some people say, rotate Boston, Tampa, St. Paul, and then a random, and that's your cycle. So you have like those 3 anchor cities, and you rotate a 4th in there.
Yeah. The one thing about mini St. Paul is it's freaking last time it was cold, really cold.
And there's not a lot of places down there.
St. Paul, if it was in Minneapolis, that would be better, I think. Obviously,
the venue just wouldn't be very good.
Yeah. The only one that I think you got to have it in there for sure is Tampa for many reasons. And then, Chicago had a good one, I thought. Boston's solid. Boston's a solid, and that's a pretty good downtown to move around in. I wouldn't, hey, man, try it. Could you do LA again? I don't know.
It's been a long time.
It was Anaheim, too.
Anaheim, yeah.
I don't know, with the Staples Center, it's probably tough because they have hockey and 2 basketball teams in there.
Yeah, that would be tough.
How about Seattle? I mean, let's get UW a team, Oregon. I'm just dying. When is it gonna? It's like I just get us a team, get us one more Big Ten team, please.
Yeah.
Like Oregon, come on, Phil Knight. You have more money than you know what to do with. I do like how like a lot of guys are now starting to clamor for the SEC to have hockey because some of the attendance they're getting for their club teams. I'm like, let's do it, But
so I've been away from the news and stuff. But did the Washington coach go to Alabama?
Yes.
Yep.
He did end up going to. Okay, I couldn't remember his name and. That's too bad.
DeBoer, I think. DeBoer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
They've had quite a few guys leave, though. Transfer.
Really?
Yeah. There's one guy that's now, and the portal. Just went in the portal that Ohio State's trying to grab. That's like a prize safety or something. I'm like, well, see what happens. There's a good sign. There is some, and I think I talked about this last month. But so the new president of the university at Ohio State stepped in Jan 1, so he got his job, and then the new athletic director was announced yesterday. He'll start in July 1. Gene Smith will be gone. But the president, Ted Carter, played hockey at Navy and was a captain there. He dropped the puck Friday night in their game against Notre Dame.
Nice.
So there's hope now that he's gonna, hey, he'll listen to them. I think he's been in the locker room there already. He's Nate Gannon, was the new assistant coach. I played with. He said that he talked hockey with them, and it was like he's at Ohio State and he's talking to the brand new president of the university, and he's talking hockey with him, and he can have a real conversation with him. It's like, okay, we've got there's definitely a ray of light there, and these two guys that are in there now are completely. We're not Ohio State people at any point. They're like truly fresh off the boat kind of things in terms of that. So I think it's a good sign for possible arena for hockey. And when the women go 13-1 against the Gopher women, get the ladies a rink. Come on. We'll see. I think there's a new open door there, hopefully. So.
Well, when the president's nickname is Slapshot, I think that's a good sign for hockey at Ohio State.
He dropped the puck in Omaha when Ohio State played there in what was that, November? Like he did opening draw there at Baxter, and then first game that he's president against Notre Dame, he was there dropping the puck, and I'm sure they'll invite him for any game he wants to come out and drop the puck and sit. I mean, he probably will want to come to games just randomly and sit in a suite because he's a hockey guy, So we'll see. This is, yeah. So that's what I have with that one because it's just been exhausting to talk about. So at least there's a little hope.
Well, Rolick was on with Jess like a week or two ago talking about this, and he's like,
"Okay,
yep, we're pitching the story to make this rink sustainable for the next 100 years. Hockey's growing in the U.S. Sure. I mean, just look at the success of the World Junior, the growth of the American and the NHL game. Ohio State's in a good conference.
The revenue, I don't think they look at the revenue enough outside of what the bringing in like tournaments and minor hockey and figure skating and all that stuff is going to be a revenue stream for it. Most other places on campus, when they built for volleyball and wrestling and that, they don't really have that kind of model as like hockey does. I don't think that they need to use these because there's not that many ice rinks especially in the Columbus area. So I think the best part will be they'll get a legitimate conversation that he will listen to, and they'll make this new AD listen to because he's his boss, I'm assuming. So yeah, they're see what happens.
How long do you want to go, guys? Because I'm tired.
No, you look like you're wild. No, we're good. I mean, whatever. It's
been a long day.
We've done this.
Yeah, you've had a long day.
We normally wouldn't even started.
No,
it's fine. No, I'm good. Hey, whatever.
Because I know Viggs, you wanted to go fairly early too, didn't you?
Well, the downside of starting early is I'm required to help out at bedtime now. So I'm on the clock.
There you are.
Yeah, so I've got an 11-year-old who's waiting to hang out with me for a little bit before he closes his eyes. So
well, let's get him to it and say goodnight to everyone watching live.
We got a big tournament in River Falls this weekend. We got 3 games on the road. So
road
good
trip.
luck on that.
Yep, should be fun.
Have fun, man.
Jupes, what's for dessert? What's dessert tonight?
I I don't know. I need to go out and have a drink or something, or maybe I'll open up the bottle in here because I'm like I want to go inside too. I kind of want to cool off.
Need a couple shots of tequila?
I had 2 for dinner and never felt them. Never felt a thing.
Well, you were eating steak and eating pasta too, so you're.
But that was after. It was like we were waiting for the food because it was like a whole on beach thing. We're all at these big tables.
Oh, nice.
Saxophone blasting, 10 feet away from me. And
You got vacation tolerance going.
Grumpy old man.
We could hardly hear each other. It was ridiculous. But so the guy's like, let's do shots around the table. Just a group from Chicago and Detroit. Just we kind of seen them. We hung out with them a little bit. And
Sure.
let's do tequila shots. Tequila shots for everybody. And then
Hey,
Barb's
when
like,
have as
I
many as
can't
you want
do it.
for no money.
She's
everyone
like, I
gets
can't do it. I'm like, I'll just have your shot of tequila then. Won't.
I always found the best part of going to an all-inclusive when you go to like a dinner and you go to a restaurant, you don't get a bill where you gotta we're with 7 people and you gotta okay, you owe this or Zelle me this. I'm like, the best part is you can throw down a tip or whatever just for the server, but you just know dealing with a bill, you can just get up and leave. That was one of the better things I thought.
Yes. So, yeah, 79 with a dew point of 73.
That's
Bit
not-
moist.
Let's see what we got here. It's I think it's 22. No, it's 18 with a feels like a 6.
Yeah, I'm looking at Belle Plaine where I live. 5 degrees feels like -12.
Yeah.
Great
I
ice
think we got
making
a
weather.
couple more days. I think that here I think Sunday's the last kind of.
Yep.
And then starting Monday's 30s and I think there's some 40s here. So even today, I think I tweeted. I don't tweet enough, but I was last night I saw the guide channel. I looked up and I was like, oh shit, 22. And I was excited.
Mhm.
I was because I've been seeing -7 and -3 and
Yeah. It has
being
been
excited
cold.
about 22 is pretty sad.
And I've been hearing from other people here yeah, I live here and it's cold across the entire country this week. I'm like,
Cold, 80s cold.
well, my brother's house in Dallas, it was 11 degrees the
Oh,
other
you're
day
talking
in the middle of the
South,
day.
Southern America.
Yeah, even some of the southern places were getting cold.
Well,
so.
Patrick Mahomes cracked his helmet in the playoff
Are you
game.
serious?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that
Wow.
was in negative. They had -30 some wind chills, I think, in that.
Wow,
Kansas
I
City.
didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like when I saw Honduras play the national team in the World Cup qualifier, and you'd open a water and it would just freeze instantly.
Yeah.
That stuff was happening in Kansas
And they
City.
literally stopped the game for him to let him switch helmets, which was totally illegal. Or he's either got to take a timeout or he's got to come out of the game. They
You are correct. That is
but
true.
they didn't. They literally stopped the game for him to change his
Oh,
helmet.
that's bullshit. That is
Hey, different
bullshit.
rules for different players.
Yeah, that's
NFL's out to make money. They want Patrick Mahomes and Otto to keep going.
And they're trying to brag about their viewership for the Peacock game because that night that was the game that you had. To
Oh,
stream
really? 'Cause, yeah, it was
Peacock
just on the
Saturday
TV
night.
here. I didn't.
All right, if you're at a bar or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Peacock, it was a streamed only game on Saturday night, and they're bragging that they got 23 million, but it was the lowest of all the 6 games or whatever for the weekend. And if you were Kansas City or Miami. Home, you got it for free. If it was the Vikings in that game, you would have got
It would have been on one of the local
It would
stations.
have been on
Yeah.
NBC, probably, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
I mean, what is 12, 15 million of that probably was those two,
Yeah.
maybe not that many, but a good amount.
A good
So-
base. Yeah.
It's going to continue though. And I've heard some podcasts listening that at some point the Super Bowl will be a streamed event.
No,
Eventually.
I hope not.
Everyone will pay for it. Who wouldn't pay $10? You're going to
I
pay.
probably wouldn't unless the Vikings were in it. I just don't. I
just think it's trending
maybe
that way.
I don't know.
TV is trending that way.
Well, let's get you to your kids, Vigs.
Yeah.
Everyone
All
say
right.
goodbye. Goodbye to our live audience. We'll catch you next week.
See you guys.